Welcome to Voices Against Violence, a Harmony House podcast to educate, empower, and serve as a voice for survivors. We aim to shed light on crucial issues surrounding domestic violence, offer support, and inspire action for change. Join us as we work together to create a community where all individuals can live a life free of abuse.
Welcome back to Voices Against Violence. My name is Kirstyn Walker. I am the Assistant Executive Director at Harmony House.
I'm Charity Jordan-Rex, Prevention Program Manager at Harmony House.
We are so excited today to be joined by Dr. Lillard from Healthy Blue. Dr. Lillard is the Behavioral Health Director at Healthy Blue, and we are so fortunate at Harmony House to be partnered closely with Healthy Blue, which has been doing a lot of funding for our prevention education over the last year. So a lot of what Charity's role is has been connected to Healthy Blue funding. So thank you so much, Healthy Blue. And excited to dive into a conversation with you today, Dr. Lillard, to learn more about what Healthy Blue is doing in the community and just more about behavioral health as it relates to survivors of domestic violence. So thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Thank you guys for having me.
So, Dr. Lillard, I wonder if you'll tell us more, just start by telling us more about your role at Healthy Blue, and then I'd also like to hear more about what Healthy Blue does.
Sure. I am a clinical psychologist by training. So I spent about 20 years working in the field, just doing direct care for clients, patients, members, whatever domain you live in. We call the folks who receive services different things sometimes. Yeah. Before I transitioned over to the managed care space. So my role within Healthy Blue as Director of Behavioral Health Services is I oversee basically the utilization management team. So when people request services and those authorization requests come in, I kind of manage those parts of the process and organization. And I also manage the case management team. And for the purpose of this kind of call, I think the case management stuff is probably a little more relevant to what we wanted to talk about when you say like kind of what Healthy Blue does.
Yeah.
And for like the members you guys serve that we serve concurrently, the case management services would be an easy way to remember what case management is in a way it's care coordination. It's helping people to coordinate their care across a bunch of different providers, a bunch of different spectrums, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, different specialists, that sort of thing. The care coordination team, the case management team can help make those connections. And so I oversee those teams within the health plan.
That's excellent. I love the way that you phrase that, care coordination. So we have case managers here at Harmony House. And so it's possible, like you said, we could have concurrent, we would call someone a resident at Harmony House, or members for you at Healthy Blue. So I'm thinking about there is very likely folks that are Harmony House residents who might be eligible Healthy Blue members that are then also working with a behavioral health case manager. So you said that they can connect folks to care, can connect whether it's outpatient. I'm also remembering about Healthy Blue that you all have a lot of like additional supports through different additional benefits. So is that something that behavioral health case managers could also connect somebody to?
Absolutely. The way the health plan is designed to operate and the way I can say confidently that behavioral health case management operates is there really is no wrong door, no wrong point of access.
Yeah.
So if some of your residents might be Healthy Blue members, for instance, they all have the option of being assigned a behavioral health case manager. And if they get that behavioral health case manager, that person can be a single point of contact for them to access those value-added benefits, those additional services that might come up, or even just to be somebody who can give them a general reminder phone call or contact about an upcoming appointment, or to follow up with them after an appointment, just to kind of be another trusted voice in the care team.
Yeah. So much support available to folks, whether it is through their managed care plan or like if they're a resident at Harmony House, getting connected through our case management team. I'm curious, what kind of behavioral health concerns might we expect or see with folks who have experienced domestic violence? In your experience as a clinical psychologist, how might that show up in office?
Sure. Well, I think it's interesting, right? I mean, as you would expect, PTSD, trauma experiences are pretty common, right? I mean, that's a traumatic experience. People deal with trauma a lot of different ways. Some people have a higher capacity, a higher threshold, and they manage it surprisingly well. Other people have a lower threshold, and it overwhelms their systems pretty quickly. So in the clinical space, one of the things that's always concerning is the re-traumatizing nature of the clinical space. You know, it's when someone's survived a traumatic experience, they've probably already spoken to law enforcement and told their story. They may have already spoken to a lawyer and told their story. They may have already spoken to the intake at the hospital and told their story. And now they're going to wind up telling that story again and again and again, until they get to that trusted outpatient therapist, that trusted person within the residential facility, that actually kind of gives them some peace and calm. So I think the re-traumatizing is so common. It's interesting though, because there's kind of two sides to this coin, and you guys can rein me in if I kind of go too far on one way or where you don't want this to go. But there's a part of our brain, right, that we can't remember without re-experiencing to an extent, right? And there's some really cool research out there, like the neurobiology of this whole process, where like Broca's area of the brain, if you guys are familiar, Broca's area is one of the spots where language originates in the brain. And there are some really cool imaging research out there that talks about when people recount traumatic experiences, Broca's area, which is kind of where we translate experience into verbal communication, right? Broca's area actually shuts down. Wow. And so they almost can't verbalize that experience because it becomes so visceral in their re-experiencing of it. But then let's flip it to the other side of that coin, that there is a habituation, a normalization part that comes with sharing your experience over and over again too. I'm an analogy kind of person, and I always like to think about it. It's almost like if you get a bruise on your arm, and that bruise is so tender and so sore and so painful to touch. But over time, the more you touch it, the less sore and painful it becomes. So there's a fine line between recognizing that at first, as you recount your story, it's going to be traumatic until you find that safe space, because your brain has to rewire itself to sit here and say, okay, it's not happening here, it's not happening now. Even though the recounting of it may be triggering it for me. In essence, by recounting it, you kind of are decreasing the stimulating nature of the sharing of the experience. So anyway, that's a long answer to one of the challenges on the clinical side of that. It's like, how do we make it a safe enough space? And for a therapist, it's almost like, do you jump right in? I think you got to follow the lead of the individual.
Yes.
And I probably shared this with you guys already too, but so much of whether outpatient therapy is ever going to be effective for somebody is that therapeutic rapport that they have to develop with the therapist anyway. They have to have that safeness, that safety. They have to feel that trust. And if they can establish that, you almost can't go wrong after that point.
The intervention matters a whole lot less. Yeah.
It does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's click. If you click, it will work. If you don't click, I don't care how amazing that person is, it won't work, right? Like the best gardener in the world cannot grow seed on concrete, because the soil just is not receptive to that effort.
Which I don't know if that information, when I heard it in grad school, I don't know if that information was like calming to me, that like, oh, it matters a whole lot more, the relationship building, the rapport building, or if it was frustrating and then like, well, then why did I just spend all those years learning interventions? Like
but it's funny though, because like I said, my wife's a marriage therapist, right? And we are completely different in our therapeutic styles. Like I am very relational. I am seat of my pants. I just kind of play it by ear, go with the flow. She is much more structured, right? And so when she works through a therapeutic experience with a client, it's going to be this, then this, then this, and it's a process. And I'm the guy who's going to take a left turn immediately because it suddenly makes sense.
Sure.
And it's funny, I said left turn when I moved my hand to the right. But,
well, it's probably mirrored. I don't know how Teams works.
Well,
we'll figure it out.
It wasn't mirrored in my brain.
Yeah,
I took it to the right. But I think that's another piece too. When you talk about that therapeutic rapport and that click, it's some people need the structure, and some people need that person who can just shift gears immediately and be okay with that. And that's part of that, allowing an individual to be themselves, especially when they're coming out of a traumatic experience, to find that safe place where they can either fall apart and fall apart with somebody, or fall apart in a container that has more rigid boundaries to kind of help catch them and give them that support when they need it. So that's a really important thing that I would encourage all of our shared members, all of the residents you guys deal with. Just because you haven't clicked with that person does not mean there's something wrong with you. It just might mean that their style is not your style, or the fit is not right. It's not, every key does not open every door.
Right.
That's such a great reminder.
It really is. We hear so often folks say, I tried therapy, or I didn't like it, and it's just kind of a blanket of, I don't want to do therapy, or I don't like therapy. And I think that's a great reminder, Dr. Lillard, that not every key opens every door.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to steal that phrase. Not every key opens every door.
Free.
Dr. Lillard.
It's not copyrighted, so please use it.
I wonder, while we're talking about this, we've done some episodes where we talk about that therapeutic behavioral health environment and counselors and therapists, and kind of why it's important for them to be informed on this issue. And you kind of touched on this, but I wonder if you can take just a minute and drill down on this. Like, what do you think those individuals need to know, the counselors and the therapists and even the case managers? What do they need to know when they have that client in front of them, if that client's experiencing domestic violence?
Well, I mean, I think it's one of the things where we can say pretty confidently that the experience of therapy, the provision of therapy, the teaching of people to become therapists is radically different now than it was 10 years ago, right? And I think it'll be radically different 5 years from now than it is now. Just like the presence of like trauma-informed treatment is such a game changer, because I think historically, what's always gone on is that whole reprocessing. You're going to share your story. You're going to have 15 different intake appointments, and with a bunch of people who just feel like robots, who don't really go to build the rapport because they're just trying to get the information. But I think as people have become more aware of the impact of trauma, and it's become more a part of not just the clinical training everybody has, but the facility training of each of the organizations where we work. Hopefully people will start to experience that. I said it for Healthy Blue, there's no wrong door. That's where a lot of our outpatient and inpatient facilities have started moving to, where it's an effort to capture once and then share that information, more than make that intake a never-ending repetitive cycle. So I like to think that's improved and that's changed. But again, I think some of it's always going to be there. There are just going to be some people who are more personable and warmer, and there are going to be some people who are more structured and stable. I don't want to say structured is bad. It can provide that stability. And warmth is not bad either, but it can also be a little too flowing and not as structured. So what I would say for your residents, for anybody else, what I said, it's just like how Lewis and Clark needed a Sacagawea. People need a trusted partner to help them navigate the confusing landscape that can kind of be treatment. And that can be either within a residential facility, that's somebody who they've already established that care with. It can be a Healthy Blue case manager. It can be somebody who has just been there throughout multiple iterations of their treatment. And when they come back and they say, that therapist stunk, that therapist was the worst I've ever seen, that Lillard guy doesn't know what he's doing, right? What you want to be able to then is you guys, or the Healthy Blue case manager, then comes back and says, you know what, that just may not have been the key that fit your lock.
Yeah.
Right? We just got to try something else. And if you've got that trusted partner to help you navigate it, because what I think it is there's a desperation, right? There's a desperation in survivors, at least initially, right? Because a lot of times people aren't first-time survivors; they're repetitive survivors of trauma, and you kind of learn that the devil you know is better than the devil you don't sometimes. And so I think sometimes people get used to, I'll just suffer in silence because the system doesn't work for me,
right,
or the system is too cumbersome. So that navigator is I can't highlight the value of that enough.
Yeah. Dr. Lillard, I'm just smiling because you're using language of navigator, and I know it's in your analogy of like navigating the system, but we have a role here. Well, it's the Family Justice Center, who is a very close partner to ours in Greene County, and Harmony House staff is called navigators there. And so in that, exactly. So in that building, it's walk-in. They can serve whoever's walking in to meet their needs, and the Harmony House staff member navigate them through the process. So in that building, there is behavioral health professionals, there's law enforcement, there's legal services, and that navigator really helps to connect. I'm also thinking of that behavioral health agency that's in that building. Those case managers can also help get folks connected to Medicaid. So really, it all just ties together.
100%. Well, the system is, I mean, you guys know it, and Kirstyn, you know, because you worked on multiple angles of this world too. From the inside, each of these systems are confusing and chaotic and difficult to navigate and to find your way through it. When you add them on top of each other,
right?
You know, the legal system on top of the behavioral health system on top of managed care, you know, and managed care sits on top of Medicaid, and then Medicaid actually kind of sits on top of Medicare, and you know, and everybody serves multiple masters and all this sort of thing. So it's really easy to get lost. So, but I'll tell you this too, and this is another analogy. It is. I have this experience when I was on I did a trip when I was right out of high school, early college, with a bunch of friends. We rented a house in Florida, and everybody took turns to do one night's meals. And my night was I was going to grill brats, right? And I go out to grill brats on the night that the heavens opened, and it was a torrential downpour, and I'm sitting there cursing at the charcoal grill that wouldn't stay lit, and miserable, right? Until a friend came out with me and stood in the rain. And what I will tell you is, from the worst experience of my life to a shared experience we still talk about 30 years later, right? Having somebody to get in the storm with you makes the storm tolerable. I remember somebody told me this one time. It's you need to know, one, is that it's having the shared experience to survive it. And then two, to know it's not going to rain forever.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes getting that perspective is what's missing.
Well, and what I love about that story is your friend did not stop the rain. And so often helping professionals are looking, right. And so often folks in helping roles are looking to stop the rain. And it's like, sometimes that's not it. Sometimes it's just sitting in it with them.
It's funny, you know, as we talk about that, and I'm going to show this, but I always wear a Superman ring. I don't know if you guys see it on there.
Oh,
right?
we can see,
have a Superman ring. I have like 6 different ones, so you just happen to get a black one today.
Okay.
But and when I was in graduate school, one of my supervisors told me, you're gonna unintentionally tell people you're planning to be their savior. You're going to be their rescuer. You're going to be that, right? And what I've done, because I never took it off because it made me mad when they said that, I just said, I'm just the big dork they're going to get lost with, right? And I'm just going to sit there with them while they try to navigate this out. But I want to be able to sit there and say, I'm just a guy. So yes, you're right though. It's when you go in, there's that desire to be the Sacagawea, right? I want to get them to the Pacific Ocean. And not every clinical intervention is going to be the clinical intervention. You know, it's when you think about recovering from a trauma, when you think about this, and I apologize, guys, I'm an analogy person, so I speak an analogy all the time. But it's like getting a boulder to move. And I think some therapists, some residential facilities, some treatment, whatever, are just going to get it rocking. Right?
Yeah.
I think I may just get it rocking and somebody else actually gets it rolling.
Yeah.
But it's okay. The rocking is just as important as the rolling.
Yeah.
You know?
The planting of the seeds. It's just as important.
It's a single step, right?
Yes.
It's that whole, but it's when I get out of my own ego of wanting to be the savior and the rescuer, to sit there and say, I'm just a cog in this machine. But I think clients need to know that too, that you're not going to go in one day, have that epiphany moment, and you're going to suddenly say, wow, I don't feel bad about this anymore. Because even if you have an amazing therapeutic experience, it doesn't change the reality that you're living in a residential shelter, that you're still facing legal challenges, that you're still trying to learn how to have a healthy relationship after
the
one
an
you came out
ongoing
of.
thing.
It is.
Wow. Well, and thank you for the reminder too of not necessarily, I mean, when we fall into that trap of aiming to rescue or be the savior, I think that also pulls us away from client-centered interactions.
100%.
Well, Dr. Lillard, I'd love to know if you could just share one piece of information with survivors who are looking for behavioral health services. I know you've said not every key opens every door. Is there any other words of wisdom that you might offer somebody who is listening, who has experienced trauma, who has maybe a survivor of domestic violence and who's looking for behavioral health?
What I would tell you to do is I would tell you to, Mr. Rogers said it best one time. Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers, right? I don't know if you've ever seen that. There's like a really cool quote. He talks about looking for the helpers, right? It's find your helpers. Find it, whether it's that trusted person at Harmony House, whether it's somebody who's seen a therapist in the past, whether it's the school counselor you had a good relationship with before you graduated, whatever, and let that person kind of be your start. Maybe they know a counselor in the field. Maybe somebody knows a counselor who's done something, right? Because there's a lot of them out there in a lot of different settings. You could have a certified community behavioral health center that might be where you go for your treatment. Federally qualified health centers, the primary care clinics all around the state, they all have behavioral health providers. There's private practices everywhere. There are places affiliated with hospitals that are there. But again, find that person who will at least go to that first appointment with you, that person who will help you call and set up that appointment, that person who will follow up to check in with you, because it gets overwhelming. It's easy just to kind of put your head in the sand and say, I'll deal with it tomorrow. And then you blink and it's 6 months later, and that trauma hasn't lessened. In fact, you're still having the nightmares have gotten worse and not better, So I would say that. I would say find a helper, find somebody who can kind of just partner with you through the whole navigation process.
Someone to sit in the storm with you, to navigate it with you.
Yeah, get wet with you.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Lillard, I just can't thank you enough and Healthy Blue enough for being that helper. When you shared that Mr. Rogers quote of look for the helpers. I'm looking at one right now because Healthy Blue is a helper in this work, and we quite honestly could not do it without you. So thank you so much for your partnership over the last year. Looking forward to continuing to partner with Healthy Blue in new and exciting ways in the future.
Thank you guys so much for having us. I know I speak for all of Healthy Blue when I say our partnership is important to us as much as it is to you guys. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All individuals have a right to a life free of abuse. If you or someone you know needs help, please call our 24-hour hotline, 417-864-SAFE, 417-864-7233, or chat 24/7 with an advocate on our website at myharmonyhouse.org. Visit our website or follow us on our socials to stay up on the latest news and events. This is Voices Against Violence. Thanks for listening.